It's okay. Well, thank you. As Marta said, it's a second round of analysis about the good citizenship using in the first round. We try to understand the configuration of good citizenship using ICCS, the last round of ICCS, and now we are thinking more in what sense this concept, the idea of good citizenship, is possible to try to understand in more than a historical or comparative analysis. In the program, the title say 46 countries, and as you know, as you say, now reduce the number of countries to 14. It's a very important point that we are working now in this issue, and this is a very collective work with Catalina Miranda, Ernesto, Treviño, Carrasco, and David Torres. And it's important to start saying something about the concept. The idea of good citizenship is a two-part concept, with obviously the idea of good and citizen. The notion of citizen are related to a group of people that are part of a collective or something. And the idea of good remarks the behavior within a community, the form. And we think that this idea of good citizenship is always conceptual. For example, in the Confucianist or Taoist cultures, the notion of good citizenship are more related to the duties, and in the Western democracies are more related to the liberal conception of citizenship. And the notion of citizenship vary in historical ways. In the 60s or 70s are more related with the patriotism or the national responsibility, and the 90s are more focused in the individual or globalization issue. And for this reason, we think it's important to try to understand the continuities and the incontinuities among the concept of good citizenship. And we use the last three rounds, the civil study and the two rounds of ICCS, and the idea is it focuses in the national characteristic, maybe different to the majority of the studies that focuses in the individual levels. We are concentrate in trying to understand the general patterns of change. And for this, we use three main type of factors. First, the political factors. We concentrate in the types of regimes of the government, because it's possible to think that, for example, in autocracies or in more restricted democracies, the notion of good citizenship are more related or more close to a duty-based conception of good citizenship. And in contrast, in more liberal or more participatory democracies, the idea of good citizenship are more open to, for example, environmental issues or globalization. Is more a problem. The second point, the second variable are the economic points. In this case, we concentrate in two variables: the economic growth, using the Engelhardt idea, the general hypothesis is that the most developed countries are develop a more liberal conception of good citizenship. and the inequality, because higher levels of inequality are more related to a more restricted form of good citizenship. And finally, we add two cultural variables. First, the religious. It's a very complicated variable, because it's not only important the levels of religiosity, and for some papers say it's not only the level, it's at the same time the type of religiosity, but in this case it's not clear the direction of the hypothesis, and the internet, that maybe is possible more related to a digital citizenship and a more global conception of what is a good citizen. And this is the data. It's the same data that Daniel shows. The three rounds of waves of the study. This is the numbers, and this is the indicator of good citizenship. As you say, in this case, the labels and the items are very similar, and only it's possible to compare in the different waves. And what is the method? We use the technique of lattice class analysis. First, to compare different model specifications, we try in the first step to understand what is the better form to compare the data in the three waves. The second step is estimate the rates of the citizenship norms for each classes in each year of the study, and compare this distribution in time. We restrict this exercise only for 14 countries. And finally, we fit a beta regression model to try to understand the relation of the percentage of each of the classes and the political, economic, and cultural factors. For these independent variables, we use different sources. For example, the variable from political regimes, we use the survey of variety of democracy. The economic data, we use the data of World Bank. And in the case of cultural variables, we use the World Value Surveys and the International Surveys social program. Well, then the results are followed. First, the first question is what is the model specification that we use. And the first models contain only items and Latin classes in structural terms. For this reason, this model represents the expectation that the countries do not vary in Latin classes. In contrast, the model 2 includes those countries and study waves has a dummy effects. The model 3 includes countries, study waves, and an interaction that expresses that civic norms and endorsement profiles vary in rates by country, and by study in each way. Finally, the model 4 includes all of the previous structural terms, while assuming that the countries present different civic endowments. Finally, we decide to work with the model 3, and this model restricts the data only for the countries that are participating in the 3 rounds of the civic studies. For this reason, we only concentrate in these 14 countries and don't use the old data. The first result is show only and a general description of the profiles. This is the same profile that we configured for ICCS 2016. And there are 5 profiles. The first profile is we name it a comprehensive profile that considers all the civic norms important. And the contrast of this profile is the anomic profile that, in general, expresses laws and norms in all citizenship norms. And the other 3 are more tricky. They name it social engage, emphasize the protection of the environment, the promotion of human rights, and the participation of local community. The duty-based are very clear, emphasizing traditions like voting, hard work, respect the law, and the monetary one seek to avoid the institutional forms of political participation, and is more critical to political authorities. This is a representation for each of the items for each classes. This is another form to show the same. When the lines are the patterns of response for each class, and in the horizontal axis are the different items. And the results, the new results are the comparison in time. As you see, the general trend is one form of show. This is another form of show the same. The general trend is that the comprehensive classes grow up in time, and in contrast, the socially engaged decrease in time. And another growth is from the duty-based, but is less is less than the comprehensive, and the anomic is flat in the time. This is another form that is the same result. But this is the result for all of the 14 countries, and this is the specification for each form of the countries, and the colors show different patterns of transformation in time. For example, in the case of Chile, it's decreased the duty-based classes, but in Lithuania, the duty-based are increases. Yeah. And for example, in the case of Colombia, reduce the comprehensive, and it's very different to Finland or Hong Kong that is the country. In the case of Italy, it's a paradigmatic case of growth of comprehensive profiles and decrease of socially engaged and monetary cases. And maybe it's only for take an hypothesis. Maybe this is related with the incorporation of the first and second round of immigrants in the political debates, or some studies show that a growth of complex form of political engagement, like in this country, like consuming news, discussing political in small circles, of do political self-expression in the Italian Union. And finally, this is the results of the beta regression. The beta regression is a widely known statistical model when response or use it when to analyze a percentage. In these cases, we fit 5 models, one for each class, and the result is not clear. But first, the time is negatively related with the monetary profile when we include the other independent variables. In the case of the another result is in the case of economic factors. As economic growth increase, there are in the comprehensive, but in the contrary for economic students, and respect to the political factor, only the autocracy predict a more percentage of students in the economic profile. This is very interesting. And finally, we add a variable to try to capture the geographical difference. As you see in this table, the majority of countries are from Europe. We distinguish in these cases the Central Europe, but maybe it's not a good form. And finally, the cultural variables, the amount of internet and the percentage of people that declare some religions are not providing, doesn't explain the percentage of each class. Finally, we are working or thinking, or maybe thinking and not working, in some conclusions, and I think it's the most important is the general growth of the comprehensive profiles. Maybe it's the best results and a descriptive part of the result, but I think the idea is now trying to explain how the comprehensive profile is growing, but at the same time all the world is born. And this is all.